The Archiepiscopal Palace of Braga is a Portuguese episcopal palace in civil parish of Braga, in the municipality of the same name, in the northern district of Braga. History. The bishopric of Braga was founded in 388 by Paternus, who became the first bishop of Braga. Officially, the Archbishopric of Braga was founded in 1071, turning D. Pedro its first archbishop. Between 1096 and 1112, Count D. Enrique and Countess D. Teresa were the masters of Braga, leading in 1112 to a letter donating the city to the archbishops, instituting an ecclesiastical fiefdom that would last to the 18th century. D. Mauricio Burdino became the first ecclesiastical master of Braga. On the 27th of May 1128, Archbishop D. Pi Mendes received a confirmation letter to expel church lands, along with the privilege to mint coin, in recompense for his support of D. Afonso Henrique's revolt against his mother, the Countess D. Teresa. In 1327, D. Afonso IV invaded the jurisdiction of then Archbishop D. Goncalo Pereira, grandfather of D. Nuno Alvarez Pereira, nominating public notaries to the crown for Braga. The archbishop excommunicated and expelled these notaries from the city. This antagonism resulting from these acts never diminished, and in 1341, when regal authorities entered the new city, the archbishop excommunicated them as well. As a consequence, the corregidor Afonso Domingues took the castle and municipal hall, which were much later returned to the archbishop by D. Afonso IV. It was following this antagonism that the construction of the primitive Archiepiscopal Palace was begun, by Archbishop D. Goncalo Pereira in 1336. In 1361, D. João de Cardelas began to use the title of Archibispo Primas das Hesperianas. In 1402, the Archbishop D. Martinho Afonso de Miranda ceded jurisdiction of the city to the crown, in exchange for land rents and other concessions. At the time, regulations obliged farmers and craftsmen to support the repair of the palace. Between 1422 and 1436, Archbishop D. Fernando da Guerra, great-grandson of D. Pedro I and D. Inés de Castro, ordered the reconstruction and expansion of the archiepiscopal structure, with Gilvasques, Fernão Martins and João Goncalves steering the build. By 1439, the tower was concluded. In 1472, D. Afonso V restored to the Archbishop D. Luis Perez the temporary jurisdiction of Braga and its surroundings to the archbishopric, allowing the archbishops to use the title Senhores de Braga e Primeses das Hesperianas. Yet this détente was short-lived. D. Fernão de Lima, a noble who lived in Braga, began a war with the archbishop, resulting in various bloody skirmishes between the two factions. By 1478, the Duke of Braganza put an end to the battles between the archbishop and Lima. Between 1505 and 1532, Archbishop D. Diogo de Sousa ordered changes at the palace, including the erection of the Fonte dos Castelos in the Largo de Paco, which led to the 1545 to 1549 construction of the northern wing, by Archbishop D. Manuel de Sousa, and the 1594 construction of the western wing in the Largo de Paco, by Archbishop D. Agostinho de Jesus. In 1709, Archbishop D. Rodrigo de Morateles expanded the building, altering the facades of wings oriented to the Largo de Paco and erecting a chapel. Between 1740 and 1750, the Archbishop of D. José de Bragança further expanded the palace, ordering the construction of the Baroque wing oriented to the municipal square. This was further enriched between 1758 and 1789, when Archbishop D. Gaspar de Bragança expanded the library, with a number of notable documents. In the second half of the 19th century, D. Miguel and his cortege installed himself in the Archiepiscopal Palace, spending his time in Braga at the bullfights in the municipal square. By 1834, the archbishops were confined to the wing overlooking the eastern edge of the Lago de Paco, as the prefecture of Minho is installed in the building, with much later the civil governor of Minho and offices of other services. On the 15th of April 1866, there was a violent fire that destroyed the Baroque wing oriented towards the municipal square. In addition to the contents of the D. Gaspar de Bragança's library gutting his collection, by 1871, the ruins of the wing were demolished and many of the stones collected. By 1903, many of the facades exposed to the Lago de Paco were plastered and painted, with the walls constructed from wooden mortar. In 1911, the archbishops were expelled definitively from the Episcopal Palace, and the 8th Infantry Regiment, courts and municipal firefighters installed in the building. By order of the Comissão Central dos Bens Eclesiásticos on the 18th of November 1912, following the upheaval caused by the Republican Revolution and schism with the Church, many of the possessions of the clergy were sold off, including 5 fountains in the interior gardens. On the 28th of March 1918, the building was ceded to the Ministerio de Instrucção Pública, and wing occupied by the archbishops was converted into the first Museum de Diogo de Sousa. By 1920, Dr. Alberto Fio solicited the building to be adapted into a library and archive. The following year, though, the chapel of D. José Bragança was gutted by fire. The project to expand the Episcopal Palace was drawn up in 1922 for the new library and archive, even as the West Wing was still occupied by the regimental garrison. In 1930, the Episcopal Palace underwent profound public works to transform and remodel the building for its use as public library of Braga and district archive. The intention to demolish the 8 buildings that surrounded the interior patio was advanced in reconstruction of the Baroque wing. By 1934, the public works were concluded the Baroque wing, under the direction of engineer Almeida Freire, and on the 1st of December the public library of Braga was inaugurated. Throughout 1936, various storms caused damage to the building, resulting in reconstruction projects in the following year, under the direction of George Viana and Fernandes de Sá, that only be concluded in 1939. But, in 1941, a major storm caused damage to the building. In 1943, the process to expropriation of the 8 buildings for the construction of an ethnographic museum was interrupted with the death of engineer Duarte Pacheco. Antonio Maria dos Santos da Cunha proposed the removal of the grades that encircled the Lago de Paco this year, but the project would not advance. The facade oriented to Lago de João Peculiar was being restored in 1944, while the following year a chapel was demolished along the northeast, in order to expand the Rua Ecija de Queiroz. This became part of the 1946 project to re-landscape the Lago de Paco, that included the suppression of the grade that encircled the parcel. Between 1947 and 1948, the library was under the control of the Ministerio da Educação Nacional. In 1947, there was an intention by the municipality to demolish the municipal market, located in the middle of the Praça do Município, in order to open up the Baroque wing of the palace and municipal hall. Architect Francisco de Azeredo presented a project to re-landscape the municipal square in 1948. Even as the following year the medieval Episcopal Square was still in construction and the process of selecting new furniture continued to evolve. On the 18th of September 1948, a dispatch was issued to define a special protection zone by the Direção-Geral de Urbanização. New projects to rearrange the municipal square initiated in 1950, which were later expanded with the 1955 construction of the Garden of Santa Barbara. Around the 14th of July, the landscapers were authorized to remove the grading along the Largo de Paco and opening up the square to Rua do Salto. This task was only begun the following, with the execution of the demolition of the municipal market. In 1964, by municipal decision, the 5 elements of the Fonte de Pelicano, which was encountered dismantled in the Episcopal Garden, were moved to the Praça do Município and reconstructed. In 1973, the Direção-Geral de Construções Escolares proceeded to adapt the central and eastern wings, oriented to the Largo da Praça for the use as installations of the University of Moinhã's rectory. The wing destined for the Museu de Diogo de Sousa and a majority of the dependencies were unoccupied, with only the first floor occupied by artisanal shop of the municipal tourist center, the district courts, and the second floor occupied by the Alliance Francesa Instituto Minhato de Estudos Regionais. But, by 1975, the library was integrated into the directorship of the University of Moinhã, and 2 years later the Museum de Diogo de Sousa abandoned the spaces. Architecture. The former court was constructed on an unlevel terrain in the historic center of Braga. The building is adjacent to buildings along its eastern and western edge, with the Cathedral of Braga and Church of the Misericordia to the southwest, and Municipal Hall and Fonte de Pelicano to the west. In the northeast is the Garden of Santa Barbara, on level ground, a geometric area delimited by shrubs and decorated with cedar topiaries. In the center is an octagonal fountain on 4 steps, with circular columns surmounted by an image of Santa Barbara. Delimiting this patio of the ruins of a broken arcade pertaining to the medieval Episcopal Palace. The palace is a set of 3 different buildings with distinct characteristics and time periods. The irregular building is a symmetrical composition, consisting of 3 bodies, that are also irregularly designed and constructed in different epochs, that are adjacent and interconnected. The medieval corp is associated with a rectangular garden patio oriented towards the Garden of Santa Barbara, adjacent to the southern 15th century U-shaped wing and rectangular square, known as the Largo de Paco. At the junction of these in the west is designated the Baroque wing, oriented to the Largo de Municipio. This body is the most formal, with a 3-register symmetrical structure with recessed central body and lateral wings. All unique buildings are of varying heights and covered in different roofing materials. Southern wing. The south wing, defining the Paco Square, is composed of various buildings from the 16th, 17th and 18th centuries. Access to the complex occurs across the 15th century body, consisting of a 2 to 3 register structure on a slight terrain, constructed of granite, except for the portion oriented to the encircled Largo de João Peculiar. The facades of the buildings are decorated in cornices and marked by several vertical rectangular veins. The facades to the Largo de Paco, with wings covered in grated windows and surmounted by rectangular cornices on the first register and more simple rectangular windows on the second floor, with guardrails. The central wing with principal entranceway is flanked by pilasters, crowned by ornate pinnacle and surmounted by the coat of arms of Archbishop D. Rodrigo Moratellis. The eastern wing includes two panels of walls separated by colossal Roman-like pilasters. On the left is a doorway flanked by pilasters and decorated by coat of arms in the timpani, between lateral windows also flanked by pilasters. To the right, there are two porticos flanked identical windows, one framed by pilasters, crowned by inscription and coat of arms, and the other framed and decorated. This wing is to the south with identical inscription, but with windows between registers and window in the mezzanine. The western wing, with gallery, is supported by colonnade and recumbent windows with coat of arms of Archbishop D. Agostinho de Jesus in the center. This wing to the south, oriented towards the Lago di João Peculiar at the corner, in the last register, closed balcony, crowned by pinnacles, supported by great balco fechado, empina coroada por pináculos, suportado por grandes corbels and windows. In the Lago de Paco is a central fountain, known as the Fonte dos Castelos, a polygonal structure with 12 steps, polylobe tank, and a column with sculptured hexagonal and 6 fountains. The ornate fountain includes a secondary tank sculpted in the form of interconnected castles linked by walls surrounding a pinnacle carved as a 3-register tower, surmounted by a statue crowned with armillary sphere topped by patriarchal cross. Eastern wing. The eastern wing, facing the Santa Barbara garden, is of Gothic style and dates to the 14th and 15th centuries. Western wing. The western wing was built in the 18th century in the Portuguese Northern Baroque style.